Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Fiona Myles. Looking forward to our conversation, Fiona, today.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So, how long is it since we did the first episode? It's got to be like 2 years, is it? Something nuts like that? Two and a half?
It must be longer, yeah, because I was looking at the time span and I was thinking, did I have the dog or not? And I didn't have the dog, and the dog is two,
All right. So,
two
it's
and
over
a half.
2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, Fiona's obviously a fellow adoptee, well, not obviously, but I don't know if you've noticed, listeners, it's pretty much all adoptees now, the podcast, the guests, the occasional birth mother. Um, and Fiona's an adoptee. She's also an author. She's got a couple of three adoption books, is it? Two or three?
Three adoption
Three, yeah.
books, yeah.
I read one of them on a flight to uh, Greece, I think, last summer, which I really enjoyed. Read the Kindle version. Um, so check out the links in the show notes to Fiona's books. Today, we're going to be talking about healing. It is our fundamental focus right now. And so my first question, I'm starting with fairly regularly, is what does healing mean to you, Fiona?
I would say for me, healing is an ongoing process because, the complexities that, we can have as an adoptee are vast, really. And as we, well, I don't want to say we because as I have looked at, where I am in this sort of journey, and as I've worked on different aspects of my own difficulties, then something else is, there's been space for something else to pop up to the surface. And so it's like, okay, so that's there now. Right, let me look at that. And each time that I've worked through something or, looked at something and then something else has popped up, the process to deal with the thing that's popped up hasn't taken as long as the whole, the main sort of flow of getting to that point where there was a space for something else to pop up. If that makes sense. I hope that does make sense.
Yeah, I think it does. The idea came to me that an idea came to me last week, actually, that maps onto the first part of what you're saying, that we don't come out of the fog just once.
Mm.
So it's a series of coming out of the fog.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
relate to that. Yeah.
And that's when different things surface. So we go through, the big coming out. The first one is the biggest. First
Mm-hmm.
one is the biggie coming out of the fog, and then it's almost we come out of the other ones. It's a successive thing. As you were saying, another one pops up. I was thinking about whack-a-mole. You know that game, whack-a-mole? Yeah.
Yeah.
So once we've dealt with once we've dealt with one bit of our
Yeah.
trauma, one bit of that, then another one comes up, and then but to continue the analogy, you're saying that if it takes us 5 seconds to whack the first mole down, and my nickname is Moley, by the way, so this
That's
is
it.
this is actually like a form of masochism for me, right? It takes us 5 seconds to not to reach across and knock the first mole down. It takes 4 seconds for the next one, and 3 seconds to the next one. 2 seconds. So it's kind of like we kind of do we get better at healing each little mole that's popped up, and maybe each mole is slightly smaller.
Mm. Yeah, I think there's a level of power is there's a level of power that's executed when you hit that first one in a way. So, as you're going along, you probably hit the first mole with an awful whack, but then you realise I don't have to actually hit that so hard and it'll go. But I think that there is a level of power in dealing with the big stuff, so that then as stuff comes along, you have that sense of, I can manage that. I can sort that out because I know where the sort of the main body of that has come from. And for me, I don't ever want to go back into that darkness, fog, whatever. I don't want to go back the way, because that feeling of that realization that so much that had gone on for me was something I had no idea about. And when that realization came and I began to lift my head, so to speak, it was like, wow, why would I want to go back that way? And that's why I continue this personal development journey. I'm not going to stop doing stuff, that's going to make me a stronger person, because as each thing comes along, I feel better able to deal with it.
Yeah. So we're on to one of my favorite subjects here. Um, and it's the notion that resilience is learned or resilience is revealed. And another word for resilience is, I guess, strength. So you were talking about, the whacking the first mole down gives you the confidence to whack the second mole down, and that's your momentum, and I would say that is revealing your strength. You have revealed the strength that you had.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like going to the gym and building a muscle. It's more like realizing the strength that you always have, but you just didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that you.
Yeah, you haven't used that strength before. Maybe.
We haven't used that strength before. We haven't seen that strength before. We haven't, realized, see the world, see ourselves with real eyes, right? So I'm thinking at the moment about that. I've been thinking a while ago about it for a while about this idea of insight as the ultimate eye opener, right? People say that was an eye opener, wasn't it? So it's we are opening our eyes. We are opening our eyes, or our eyes have become opened to the strength that
Yeah.
we have. And the reason that that's a really big deal in my world, in my philosophy, is that if resilience has to be strengthened, we have to go to the gym. We have to remember to go to the resilience gym. We have to fight through the pain barrier of going to the gym. We have to withstand the boredom of not going anywhere. We have to kind of get over the fact that it's going to take us time. And it's a long, drawn out bloody process, right? But seeing our resilience happens in an insight, in a minute, in a split second. We see it.
Yeah.
So, like, we don't have to wait for it. We don't have to go through. We don't have to go through treacle
Yeah.
to this resilience. Resilience is realized. It's perceived. It's something that we see about ourselves, which we haven't seen before. Which means it's a seeing thing, not a doing
Yeah.
thing. And that, in my world, that makes things a whole lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose if you haven't seen it before, then I suppose you can't recognise it.
And no, you can't. You can't. And I was talking about the similar thing on a podcast the other day, and this was a real shocking moment for me. So it was it was a tale about the Native Americans seeing Columbus's ship for the first time,
Yeah.
but they couldn't see it because they had no picture of it in their heads. They had never seen a big ship before. They'd only seen little rafts
Yeah.
before. And because the brain couldn't compute it, it couldn't see it. It had no explanation.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's true or not, but it's a pretty good story, even if it isn't. But it gets to somewhere in terms of how big this is, this seeing thing.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah,
seeing
and
thing.
I suppose you're right. I suppose if they could, they wouldn't have. Well, they wouldn't have recognised it. They may well have saw it with their eyes, but they wouldn't have recognised what it was.
Yeah, the
No,
eyes might have taken in, but the eyes might have taken in the image, but there was no image.
no,
Like when with Georgie when she sees something for the first time, right?
yeah,
The difference between cat and dog, right, is she hasn't
yeah,
learned until she
yeah.
doesn't categorize that until we do categorize stuff. Um, so you're also talking about momentum. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to go back; you want to go forward.
Yeah. I don't
When
want to go back.
when when did you? Do you remember seeing that for the first time?
I think the first time it kind of really sort of settled home was I started to do a lot of digging, because I had no idea about finding adoption files and all that stuff. And I got my adoption files, and I found out that I had been told a lovely story, when I was being told I was adopted and everything, and that I was told that I was in an orphanage with all these other children in beds, and my mum and dad had come along to choose me out of these other children, and I'd been bouncing up and down in the cot, and that's why they'd chosen me. And I've believed that all my life. I thought, isn't that lovely? But then, oh, what a shame for all those other children that didn't get chosen and stuff like that. The things that go through your head, when you've been told something. And when I found my biological parent, she told me that she had done everything in her power to keep me, and it just wasn't possible. And, that there'd been a death in the family and stuff like that. There was a great reason for her not, keeping me, which I always in the back of my mind, I could never figure out why she managed to keep an older child and not me. But anyway, so then when I got my adoption file, try and cut it short a bit, everything in the file told me immediately that everything I'd been told wasn't true. The stuff I'd been told from my mum and dad, this nice story about the orphanage and all, wasn't true. And also what I'd been told about why I'd been given away wasn't true. And also who my biological dad was. I'd been told this great story that me and my older sister were from the same guy. We'd even thought about going looking for him. We'd done this, that, and the next thing. And he just doesn't exist. Do you know what I mean? I know that now. So that popped me onto a journey of real rage. I was fuming. I was fuming at my mum and dad for telling me this stupid story that I believed. I was fuming at myself for believing it. Fuming at my biological mum for not telling the truth, because I could have found my biological dad, blah, blah, blah. And I realised that I was heading backwards. And I was like, no, 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 stop that. So I stopped, delving so deeply into the adoption file, and I did a bit of work on, I got a little bit of therapy kind of thing, and spoke to a good few friends that I really trust and admire that don't allow me to go down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And then I did the DNA thing, and I found my biological dad, and unfortunately he died a few years ago. And that kind of made me fuming again, because I was like, I could have got to know him, but I have got to know some wonderful sisters, half sisters. So that was, it's looking at the good that's come from it, because I could have focused on all that rage, because everybody's dead. All my parents are dead, and I had nobody to sort of throw that anger at. Do you know what I mean? Because it wasn't, nobody else told me the stories. I'm trying to stop saying the lies, but they were lies. But to them, it was probably stories to enhance my, I suppose, feelings towards what happened to me. Because basically my mum and dad went to somebody's house in Girvan and picked me up. Do you know what I mean? I was allocated to them, I suppose. Yeah. So it's kind of like, and then as an adult, as a grown up, I was like, why didn't I twig that myself anyway? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, we talk about coming out the fog and anger being and then the anger leaving us or getting over it, and then we're on to the next mold to whack down. And there's a sense that we have to kind of. I heard this from one of our neighbours who's a therapist, just qualified, and not specialising in adoption. She said people have to break down to break through. If they're not, and we talked about this a little bit before in terms of some of the work you've been doing with fellow adoptees that you're not doing anymore. But people, we only seek help when we're really at some of our lowest points, and we have to it seems like, to be part of the process, we have to break down to break through. It has to get pretty bad.
Yeah.
It has to get pretty bad till we get to that realization that we can't put up with anymore. So I'm thinking about a non-adoption perspective. My wife, she hated a job. She hated a job for decades. She hated the role that she was in. She tried to get out of the role, do something different.
Yeah.
But somebody, we get hired for our skills. So somebody sees us and wants us to do what we've done for somebody else in the past. So we kind of get stuck in that thing. And I'd wanted her to be able to. I'd wanted to make enough money for her to be able to retire a long time ago, but she had to get to that point where it got really, really tricky before she was ready for a change.
Yeah.
So the truth clearly is one of those things that helps us heal.
Yeah.
After the backlash to it.
Yeah.
After the anger comes up.
Yeah.
Then we get some help. We get some help, and then something settles for us. How would you describe it?
I would say basically getting the help, allows you to take the time to step back, because in the heat of the moment, like in the moment when I was reading the files, because like I live in England and my sister lives in Scotland, and I asked her to come on the phone as I was reading the files, and I was sort of reading it out. And then when it came to the realisation that what, my mum and dad had told me wasn't true, and then when further down, when it came to the realisation as to what, my bio mum had told me, I just lost it. I was howling and crying and all the rest. Yeah. And of course, my sister could do nothing because she's like on the phone. So it was a sort of immediate response from me, that everything because it was just so like, why? I couldn't get my head around why tell me this rubbish in that moment. So then it was stepping back and then speaking to people and, having them say, well, this is why they possibly did that. They could have been told by social workers that it was kinder to tell you that, because you might not have understood that they just drove to Girvan and picked you up in a house. It was a nicer sort of narrative for you. Do you know what I mean? At the time. So, realising that, they were probably working on a premise that they were given by social workers or whatever, I could get my head round that, and the sort of anger was sort of dissipating a bit. But then with being told things that weren't true about my biological father, I found that a little more tricky to get the understanding on, because that kind of did me out of not getting to know him. It did 8 siblings out of not getting to know me, because they did know that there was going to be a sibling that could appear at some point, you know, and it did him out of getting to know me as well, which he would have liked. So, you know, I had to work through that as well, because I was kind of thinking about the roll-on effect that it had on so many people as well. But again, you know, having other people sort of explain to me the reasonings that it could have been, because neither my mum and dad or Maggie that gave birth to me, none of them were bad people. Do you know what I mean? They just, there was a narrative, and going into the 60s and whatever and stuff like that, and there would be a fear on their part, both sides. There would have been a fear on their part that I wouldn't have liked being told, you know, what the truth was, and there would have been a fear on Maggie's part as well, that if she'd have told the truth, I might have found my bio dad and liked him better. There's so, on all sides of the adoption spectrum, everybody's feeling this fear of, you know, losing one, losing the other, and you know, and at the end of the day, the adoptees bang smack in the middle has lost everything, because you can't have a full and proper relationship on that side, and you also can't have that full, proper, secure relationship on that side, because you're always the outside in. You've been brought in to each situation. Was that all a bit too much?
I don't think so. I mean,
Sorry.
the loss was the thing. You know, we're angry about the loss. We're angry.
Yeah.
We're angry about the loss of time, or you were angry about the loss of time that you could have had with those biological, that you by a dad and your siblings, and that's what you were angry. That's what you were angry about, and then something happened to you when you so you had that perspective on the situation. Other people had offered a different perspective on the situation, and that gave you some freedom. That gave you some, you know, that change. That was it. That gave you a chance to change your own perspective. You see, so that matches. That matches my experience too. You know, we're going down. I've got my view of the world. Somebody offers me a different view of my world or the world, and then I can see that if I'm open enough, I
Yeah.
can see the sense in what they're saying, and my perspective changes to a kind of way of seeing it, and we have this realization. You know, you talked about this realization. None of them weren't bad people. Maybe they were doing it because they thought it was kinder. So instead of being angry with them for their lies or their half truths, well, lies. Sorry, they were lies. You said lies. Half truth is me just. Sometimes we're told lies. Sometimes people lie to us because they think it's a better. It'll feel better. It'll sit better with us. And some people also tell half truths because they think it will sit. And sometimes they don't know. They don't know. So they kind of just make something up that they think is going to be more palatable for
Yeah.
them.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, there's them filling the vacuum.
That unknown space, fill it with something.
Fill it with something. Let's pick what we think is going to be a nice narrative. But then we've got this clash, and I think that this is the ultimate thing. It's the ultimate invalidation of our feelings.
Mm. Yeah. Yes.
You know, like you know, that it's the it's what so many of us rant about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Because I suppose I have Georgie, I have my daughter, and you know, I know that for her, there's going to be no half truths. There's going to be no making it up to make her feel better in the moment while she's this age. There'll be at the moment in some areas there's radio silence because she's got special needs. She doesn't understand a lot, and stuff like that. But as she grows in that aspect, then she will be told the truth, as to everything that happened to bring her into our lives. But for us, our big win, if it can be a win, is that she has full contact with her biological family. She goes to Nana and she goes to her sisters and stuff like that. So she has that sort of, she's able to know, even though she doesn't know the circumstances because she wouldn't understand them, she's not, cut off from her reality.
Yeah. So there's no lies to be angry about.
No, there won't be for Georgie, no.
Yeah. And so your kind of take on what healing is it the settling down of the anger on the back of a different perspective?
Yeah, definitely. The healing, the healing for me is getting the different perspectives on that one piece of paper. Well, it was a few sheets of information and letters, not reading through all that, and the anger that exploded, that volcanic eruption, which, to be perfectly honest, I am quite a mild-mannered person these days, and as the years have gone on, I've become a lot more mild-mannered. And I don't know what book you read, but you probably, whatever one, you would have known I wasn't mild-mannered in the past. But the force, the eruption that came from reading those innocuous pieces of paper on a computer screen, it was like, what? I just completely lost all sense of, decorum even. I was just hysterical. And so it was, for me, shutting that computer screen, getting away from it, and going and speaking to people, to have cold water, I suppose, poured onto that lava, for that lava to cool and for it to solidify and become something that wasn't going to damage anybody, needed to be done, because the damage that could have been done from me, giving out to everybody, slamming it out there on social media, whatever, and all the things that, the impulsive nature would have you do, I was able to minimise the damage in as much as everybody else's damage. But also I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be in that place of simmering away and boiling of anger. I wanted that cold water put on that perspective given, so that I could calm down and calmly look at, right, okay, this is happening, that's what it is. Where's the good in this? What can I do to to get the best out of this, whatever, this information that I'm now a party to.
So healing is smaller eruptions.
Yeah, because the next time I looked at it, yeah,
is less eruptions than the smaller when they happen.
Less eruptions and definitely smaller, because I can read it now and it doesn't bother me. Do you know what I mean? And things, as well, talking to the two sisters and finding all out about my biological dad, and I realising that a lot of the quirky things I've got going on, come from him. There was such a lot of nice sort of things that came from the longer story, taking the time to find out. And because I swithered as to what do I do? Do I go and find this guy? Or at that point, I didn't know if he knew about me. I didn't know if he'd want to know about me. I didn't know if he had a family, all the stuff you don't know, you know. So I had to swither and make that decision as to, did I want to know?
So the big thing was really your openness to alternative perspectives in it. Like
Yeah,
taking it upon yourself, think, right, okay. So instead of stewing with your own volcano, you kind of went to talk to some other people, and
yeah,
yeah, you shared your volcano, and they
yeah. I did. I shared my heat with other people that weren't hot. Other, non-adoptees and adoptees, as well, because I think it's good to have balance in the perspectives that you're getting, as well. So it was interesting to hear people's different perspectives on. Some people were like, why would you want to know now and stuff like that. Why did when somebody said to me, so why did it make you so angry? And I almost had an eruption at them. I
yeah,
was like, what do you
yeah,
mean, why did it make me so angry?
yeah.
I was angry, I was
It,
fuming.
I, I see that with I see that happen with kids. I haven't shared this on a while. I haven't shared this, but regular listeners will know that I'm keen on swimming, and I overhear things in the if I'm swimming at the weekend, and there's a dad and their little kid, their son in the change rooms, and the kid's having a meltdown because they've got shampoo in their eye, or um, the socks have got wet on the floor,
Mm,
and they're having a complete meltdown. Like, because kids aren't bothered about, they're not bothered about volcanoes, are they?
no,
They
no,
don't volcano shame themselves. You know what I mean? Don't say,
no.
oh, I wish I hadn't exploded like that. I wish I hadn't erupted like that. They give it full welly, don't they? That's what they do.
Yes,
And it's so kind of emotional. It is an eruption, and it over something, whatever it is, and then the dad tries to come in with a question like, "Why are you so upset?" And that's what came to mind when you shared that thing. Like your
yeah,
friend said, "Why are you so upset?" And it's just like, what? But we,
yeah,
but and but the thing is, sometimes we don't know, do we? Because
yeah,
if it's an area well, this is just me, right? I'm frustrated
mhm,
about this, and I'm incandescent, and I can't explain it. Like, so my
yeah,
wife says to me, you're going to have to look at that anger stuff, where that comes from. Well, it's trauma,
yeah,
love. It's trauma.
yeah.
It's a trauma response. No, but why? You know, and, and,
I
and then
know.
when the kid and when the dad's trying to keep it together, right, and the son losing it, and trying to stay calm. He's fuming at the logistics because he wants to get back and
Yeah,
go off to do his golf course, or
yeah,
whatever he is. Like, he's got an agenda to get the kid out there.
yeah,
And the kid logistics are going to. But I'm crying on the inside for this little kid, because like the dad's trying to fight a volcano, with like
fan,
a
a
what?
fan, a fan,
Fan. Yeah, yeah. He's
fan in the flame.
or yeah. Well, he's going to fan the flame, or he's trying to throw an ice cube, and he's trying to throw one ice cube into 10 tons of
Lava.
molten lava that's coming out the top of this volcano, and it's going to do no difference. And all it's going to do is make the kid think, my dad doesn't understand me.
Yeah, yeah,
I, like, I don't know. I'm 6. I don't know why. It's because my sock's gone in the wet
It shouldn't.
puddle. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's just it's this huge lack of empathy,
yeah,
feeling understood, and
yeah,
as I talk about this, I can feel my pain in the moments that I've not felt understood.
hmm, yeah, yeah. And I think as well, one of the things I've come to realise as well is that your circle of friends, I have a big circle of friends, adoptees, complete that circle. But so many people I've realised in finding out my own sort of trauma hole or whatever, that they didn't understand me because they didn't know that I had a trauma, because I didn't know I had a trauma.
No, that's the thing. When they ask us the question, we don't know why,
No,
because because the trauma is pre pre-verbal, pre-verbal, because it's not in our conscious, it's not in our conscious mind. It's in
no,
our subconscious, and this is the thing, we don't, and so we can't pinpoint it.
yeah,
Not as specifically as they want us to.
yeah.
We can
And we
just
can take,
it's a
we can
trauma
take that
response.
back.
Sorry.
Yeah, and we can take that back to the ship that wasn't recognised. It was something that was there, but they didn't recognise it because they didn't know what it was.
Yeah, their eyes saw it, but the brain couldn't compute.
Yeah, or other people could see there was something not quite right about me. Just talk about myself here. But I could never explain myself as to why I was doing that or behaving that way because I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? Whereas now I do know. I know there's a little traumatized hole there that, bit by bit, is becoming smaller and more manageable. I can't say it's gone. I can't say that it's gone. I can't say that. I'd love to say, oh, it's gone. Come to me and I'll tell you how I did it. I don't know. It's not gone. It's just not as big as it was.
Yeah. So we're really going to town on mixing our metaphors today, right? So the mountain has become a molehill.
Mm,
The
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Definitely not as big as it was. And,
but that's been in stages. It's not
bit by bit.
bit by bit. So
Yeah,
it's as you say, it's an ongoing process.
yeah.
What do you think hinders our progress on that journey, or what has hindered your progress, if anything, on that?
I say a lack of recognition. Recognizing that you do have what you have and that it is a trauma. You know, I think a lack of recognition, it was the biggest stumbling block for me. But once I became aware and I recognized and I knew that that's what it was, going forward from that, the little sort of stumbling stones were, um, this is now quite scary. This is a little bit scary because I've behaved in that way for so long, and now I'm aware of it. I need to stop doing that. Do you know what I mean? So there's that little kind of like, oh, okay, there's no excuse now for you to behave like that because you now know and recognise that that is um, an element of your trauma. So for me, but in some instances where I'm still triggered or still have an issue in an area, I'm more happy now to say to people, well, I'm working on that. It's a trauma and it's not fully dealt with yet. It's recognised, but it's not completely. sorted out yet. So apologies if I've upset anybody by my outburst, because I do tend to have these little outbursts, especially in group discussions and stuff like that. I can't stand some things that people say. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's even relevant, but I do. I'm involved in a few little groups, and sometimes I'm like, "What? Excuse me." I just have to say something. Whereas I need to learn that people are maybe not ready to hear all your stuff.
That surfaced something for me actually. Yeah, I do that too.
Do you?
Yeah, and I sometimes do it with, you know, I do it with topics that have got nothing to do with adoption, right? So the story, I do it. I do it with people that are inept.
Right.
Yeah. So 3, 4 years ago, I thought, well, the business isn't going great. I need to go back to basics. So I go on a beginner's course. And the the people at the front of the room were had never started their own business.
Right.
They were corporate people.
Right.
And I was thinking, well, and this woman said, I've got an MBA. And I sat there thinking and fuming to myself, how's that going to help me with my little MBAs are for big companies.
Yeah. Right.
And so I was sat, fuming there, like, who on earth? Well, how come these people can't see their lack of qualifications or to mentor or teach fledgling, just starting out businesses, right? Because I'd gone right back to basics. I thought I was missing something, so I need to go right back, challenge all my. And so I was fuming about this, and like, so then I was angry about the fact that they could. I was angry that they were the wrong people for the job. I
Yeah.
was angry with them because they couldn't see they were the wrong people for the job, and I was angry with them because people had hired them, the wrong people for the job, right?
Yeah.
And then it came to something a bit. It got to this point when they said, "So you've got to decide. You've got to decide whether to go for this or not. You've got to make a business decision." And they said, "So one way of doing this." They told us, shared a story about how a company had paid for an advert in the like the Super Bowl, like so the Super Bowl
Oh
is the
yeah.
American football equivalent to the FA Cup final, essentially, right? So a company needed to make a decision. So it ran an advert, which must have cost like, I don't know, $20 million, say, right?
Yeah.
To help them make the decision. And I just sat there and I just thought, nobody's got 200 quid here. Never mind. Never mind $20 million. What an absolutely crap tactic to share.
Yeah. Yeah. Not helpful.
And I remember all that fuming coming. I remember that fuming coming up. Like it's got nothing. It's got nothing to do with adoption, but it's basically got to do with people being inept and
Yeah.
not thinking. And and that's, yeah, that's the anger. That's anger surfacing. It's got nothing to do with adoption, and I hadn't spotted it before. So thank you for that. As we speak, we started off the conversation by saying how long how long ago it was since we last spoke,
Uh-huh.
and there's an incredible change in you.
It's thorough, thank you. That's good to hear.
And as soon as I say that, I think, am I insulting Fiona of 2 years ago? I don't. I'm not meaning to do that. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Is that a people pleaser thing? Yeah. I once I met somebody on holiday we'd met before, and I hadn't seen him for a few years. And I just said, "Hey, how are you doing? Looking great." Yeah. And she looked at me like I'd just smeared her with poop, right? So basically, you're saying I look really, really unwell when you saw me last time. That's what you're saying. And it's a funny, what our egos do. So something, whatever you've done with the writing of the books, right, it's helped you process stuff and seeing, yeah, some of the other work you've been doing maybe has helped you
Yeah,
too. I don't know. I'm putting
yeah,
words into your mouth. So other than the conversations, you've pointed fairly and squarely at basically you being open. First of all having a circle of friends that are willing to go onto deep stuff, right?
yeah.
And I don't do that with my friends. So there's one thing for you. Maybe it's a gender thing, right? Sorry, massive stereotype, right?
Maybe.
So basically, circle of friends, openness, uh, a desire to process stuff, a desire
Yeah,
to heal, an openness to listening to other people's perspectives and having your perspective change as a matter of course, has been basically the biggest thing that you've talked about in the last, whatever, we've been on 45 minutes or so. Yeah. Uh, and I'm throwing in the books and the working with other fellow adoptees as other things that have helped you here. But I'm putting your words into your mouth there. So you tell me what else has helped you?
I mean, the books were a great tool to get everything out, and into the books. And for me, going through scenarios through my life, I think writing Adoption Trauma, that was the best book. Well, it was, but in my opinion, it was the best book. But just having those poems come to mind, and writing it down about sitting in a room and looking around the room and realizing nobody else in the room has got frizzy hair. Nobody's got squinty eyes. Nobody's got a mole like this. Is there anybody in this room that even looks slightly like me? There's like a poem in there that talks about that kind of angst of needing some kind of recognition with someone, whereas fast forwarding to now, and I would say, that looking for that recognition, going into drug addiction and being in a group of other addicts, that's a bit of recognition. Being in certain situations, even going and finding faith and going to church, you've got you're getting recognition there as being like some of them. But now, I am in a position where I am recognizing that I am completely and utterly unique, fearfully and wonderfully made, and there's there is scope to continue to build upon what's here, and become, more healed, if that's the right way to say it, or to become more free and more, or less triggered, less angry, less, feeling rejected. I feel the best I've ever felt in my whole life, because I actually came out of my church that I'd been in for 20 years and moved to a smaller place where I'm not anybody. Because in the other church I was, on the staff, I was pastoral and all the rest of it, so everybody kind of knew me. I came out of that church and moved to a little church where I'm just just sit on a seat, and I enjoy just being me, you know, and that's where I want to be in my sort of that side of my life. That faith journey is just being me and not feeling the need to be recognised in a setting, in a group, in a. Does that make sense in a way? To me, that's my element of healing. That's a level of healing. To me, that's a good thing.
It's like a fresh start with nobody to, don't need to explain anything to anybody, and you can be yourself. You don't have to stand out anymore. You don't.
Yeah, yeah. There's no pressure. I suppose in a way, there's no. Well, I don't feel the pressure I used to feel. I suppose that's people pleasing. That's the people pleasing thing. You know,
pressure to do what? What was the pressure that you felt in the old church?
I would say to continue to do the stuff that I was doing, because that, you know, was pleasing to people, I suppose, because I did a lot. You know, I did a lot of work with addicts. I did a lot of work with hurting people. I did a lot of work, but in doing all that, I was doing little or nothing on myself. You know, so I knew that I needed to step away from that to focus on.
Did you need to do that for your own significance, you mean?
I don't know if significance is the right word, but I needed to do it so that I wasn't feeling that pressure anymore, so that I could focus on what was going on in me, you know, and because this little trauma hole had opened up, and well, it was always there, but now that it had been recognised, I needed to take the time to not have a whole load of pressure on me and just work on, you know, filling that in a bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm thinking about launching into some of my stuff, but I think I get where you think what you're getting, and it's I got an email this morning from somebody who was talking about basically throwing yourself into work to avoid trauma,
Right.
and you know, as a coping mechanism. And I thought, well, yeah, I do a bit of that. And you know, we start stuff for the best of reasons, or no, I have started stuff for the best of reasons, but then probably I've not changed tack, and when it hasn't gone to plan, I've taken stuff personally, and
Yeah. Right.
but when there's no agenda, you don't have an agenda in your new church. You don't have an agenda. In your church, you had an agenda.
Yeah.
So I have less of an agenda with the podcast than I used to do, but I have more of an agenda in some ways.
Yeah.
It's more important, you know. Like I still look at the numbers and think, is that the only number downloads I've had? You know, I get that keeps on coming back to me, you know, but I take it less seriously, and it's more important to me that I enjoy conversations, and I think that we talk about topics that are going to help the audience, and I know that audience is smaller.
Okay.
The audience of the audience is smaller, but quality is more important to me.
Yeah.
So I've got less agenda with it.
Yeah.
I don't have to chase. You don't have to play that. You're not having to play the role. You don't have to live up to people's expectations. They've got expectations. You can do what you want to do. You don't need to you've stepped away from that role to
yeah, and being in a
churches.
stronger, yeah, and being in a stronger position to say, because I think in any sort of church or organisation, if you have a skill or whatever, and people find out about it, it's like, oh, can you do that? And just feeling confident and able to say, no, no, I can't. I could, but I'm not going to. Maybe in the future, but right now, and for me, that's a huge win.
Yeah,
Huge win.
fantastic. Is there anything you'd like to share that I haven't asked you about?
I don't know. I think for me, I like the fact that you said I was a different, I was a different person from before. That to me was music to my ears, because I want to be. I don't want to remain the same. I wouldn't want to come on in another 2 years and just say exactly the same stuff and not have seen any progress. And I think for me the key has been the recognition of so many things that I hadn't recognised before. The ships on the horizon that now have, I now recognise that's the ship of that, that's the ship of that, and each of those ships are now, some have sailed away, never to be seen again. Some are floating around in the shallows that may never sail away, but the recognition is there.
Cool. Thanks, Fiona. We'll see you again in a couple of years' time, or very
Okay.
soon. Thanks, listeners. Speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.